About 2.5 years ago, my son was 2.5. I got a call from my wife, and she told me a story that they'd gone down the park, our local park, and my son at 2.5 had encountered some really ratty 5-year-old kid who was down the park on his own at age 5, and had grabbed my son by the hair and smashed his head into a metal pole twice, kicked him and spat on him. And my wife was like 6 meters away, ran over as quickly as she could. She had a baby in the thing here on the front and managed to get the rough kid away from him. But it was the first time my son got into a fight. Of course, being 2.5, there was nothing at all he could do. I was worried, so I came home from work and talked to him about it, and he seemed reasonably fine for a while. But then about an hour later, he said, "I should have roared like a lion. That's what I should have done. If I'd roared like a lion, that boy would have gone away." And I talked to him and said, "It's not going to work. Don't worry about it. Daddy will talk to you about it when you're older." Again, later on in the day, he said, "What if I'd put my rope on him? If I'd put my rope on him, surely that would have fixed the problem," or something 2.5-year-old term like that. What that means is he had a bit of string, bit of rope that he was swinging around his head like a lasso at the time, and we'd said, "If that ever hits the baby, you'll really hurt the baby, so don't use your rope inside." And so he's saying, if I put my rope on him, then he could have whipped him or something. So I'm sure that 2.5, he was thinking, how could I roar back, or how could I fight back? And he'd come upon the idea of using his little whip or something. And that next time he went to the park, he said, "I'm going to take my rope with me." So my point is, my wife and I tried really hard, but we only managed to go 2.5 years before our son got involved in violence, before he was thinking about fighting, before he got his ass kicked, before he wanted to kick someone else's ass, and before he started making weapons around the house to help him kick some guy's ass. Now, I firmly believe that this wouldn't have happened to him if he was my 2.5-year-old daughter. I think my wife can take her anywhere, and some grotty punk that's looking to kick some kid's ass to increase his own social status won't target her, and I don't think he'll target her because she is a girl. I think that my son got into whatever sort of fight he got in at that age specifically because of his gender. Now, I know girls have their own problems when things get older, but at this age, 2.5 years isn't long enough to try and keep your son out of violence. It starts really young.
Now it occurs to me, to whatever we're going to call this, we have to use the word violence, and it seems violence that's specific to one gender and not another, that based on the gender that you are, you're going to encounter one type of violence that has certain properties and not another. So we might say that this is gender-based violence. However, if you go look up the term gender-based violence, you'll see that someone's already used it. Great, that someone's worked out that there are many types of violences, some for boys, some for girls, some for women, and some for men. But when I looked, it was pretty hard to find anything that even addressed that there might be violence for men. On the football field, as part of a gang, when guys target you at school, when you're a weak nerdy guy and big guys want to beat you up to impress girls or take your lunch money or whatever it is, you search men and there's nothing anywhere on these pages that actually deals with men other than to say that sometimes men perpetrate the violence, although they're fairly guarded about saying that. There's nothing on it all on boys. Search for boys, find nothing. However, search for girls, there's plenty. 7 hits. Let's try women. Nine hits. Now this is just one page, and this is the UNHCR, so that's a global thing. Let's try another page. Same thing, specifically female genital mutilation. I know technically that's cutting people and stuff, but it's not fighting. That's some old religious thing, or that's a tribal thing in certain parts of the world. It's horrible. I can't believe people do it. Children's important. Violence against children refers to child due to stereotypes around their sex and gender identity. But when you go looking further, it's all girls. It's all as though people are hitting girls because they're girls. It's clearly the case that people are hitting boys because they're boys. Admittedly, it's boys and men hitting boys, so maybe because it's the same gender, the whole identity politics we're doing, it doesn't count. Let's search, however, gender-based violence in Australia, closer to where I am. Maybe locally we have different issues, not so much female genital mutilation, something else. I got a couple of hits here, a local news station. There you go, against women. But violence against women is presented as timeless and universal phenomena. Surely violence against men is a timely and universal phenomena. I don't understand. Statistics show that one woman is murdered each week. I'm sure there's men murdered every week. There's a guy murdered just down the road from me just the other day. Here's another station, another channel, another page. Oh, again, violence against women. So that men and boys are expected to fight, even as young as 2.5 years of age, doesn't constitute gender-based violence, even though that same pressure isn't upon girls and women.
Now, I totally 100% accept that there is gender-based violence against women. Obviously, there is the intimate partner, the domestic violence now seems to get called intimate partner violence. Yeah, no doubt. One Australian woman a week was the stat. Like, I'm sure it's happening back the other way, but our jaws just don't break as easy and women's don't punch as hard, so perhaps there's less incentive for them to do it and less incentive for us to report it. But think about what happens with boys. Like, I've been fighting at school forever. It's completely normalized. And fighting in the street when you're 18, 19, yep. Indoor cricket, yep. Indoor soccer, yep. Football field, yep. How do we expect to get, like, nice, well-rounded males out of all of that? If we're going to have to do anything about this, we're going to have to accept the fact that we make boys for fighting, or we don't try and stop. My wife and I tried 2.5 was as far as we could make it. I wonder if anyone's ever beaten that record. Is that a record? Do guys go longer than that? I don't know. But the term gender-based violence now seems unapplicable to boys. And boys didn't even feature in any of those websites. That is, we're going to have to come up with a new word, but gender-based violence seems a really good fit. Why didn't we apply that wider at the time, I wonder? I'm not shitting on women, I'm just saying there's obviously a problem going on with boys, and it's too late. We've already used the right words for a too narrow meaning. Look, that's the only point I really wanted to make. It's a clear communication to men and boys that violence against women is a problem, violence against men isn't. And that if you are male, you better get good at violence, because no one's coming to defend you. You're going to have to defend yourself. And what do we do when we have a country or a world full of men that are really, really well versed in violence? My old boxing instructor used to say that it's the universal language. Not everyone speaks it, but everyone can understand it, and that you need to learn to speak it. I mean, now when I look back on that sort of communication, A, he's exactly right. B, I'm glad I learnt it. But C, that's kind of the problem, isn't it? I don't think we're doing a very good job with this one. Anyway, Charlie Delta, that's me, out. I'll see you in the next video.